Blade Runner 2049 is not your typical action flick that we've come to expect over the past decade. It's more of a complex sci fi drama with action bits dropped in than a sci fi action movie that you expect going into it. Now, by no means is this a bad thing. This movie is 2 hours and 45 minutes of pure enjoyment for me. The biggest praise I can give this movie is it passed the piss test. For those of you who don't know me very well, never been to a movie with me, when I go see a movie like this, I will buy the biggest drink that I possibly can get from the concession stand. And if at any point in the time in the movie I have to go to the restroom, and I feel like there is enough time for me to get up and go and not miss anything, there's an issue with your movie. For 3 hours, I sat and had to hold it in because I did not want to miss a thing for this. And I feel like that should say something right there. Now, talking about this movie without giving it away is a little difficult because just about everything you see on screen has significance to the plot. There are very rarely, for 3 hours of a movie, any scenes where you're like, well, that just didn't need to happen. So instead of discussing anything that might give the movie away, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and discuss things that helped make the movie as fantastic as it did without trying to spoil any of the plot. First thing first, we got to talk about the cast. So in this movie, we've got Ryan Gosling as Officer Joe Kay, who is a synth and a police officer. For those of you who don't know, synths are artificially created humans essentially to do the jobs that real humans don't want to do. They are their workforce. Then we've got Harrison Ford reprising his role as Rick Deckard. Now, for those of you who have not seen the original Blade Runner, it is not strictly necessary. However, it will definitely help you along at some points. Next, we've got Jared Leto as Niander Wallace, the multimillionaire tycoon and creator of the newest wave of synth. Following up, we've got Ana de Armas as Joy. In this case, she is Ryan Gosling's love interest, but not in the way you'd expect. And surprisingly, this actually subtracted nothing from the plot. You know, typically whenever you see a love interest, you think, oh, there's going to be some cliche plot. Absolutely not. This does nothing but add to Ryan Gosling's character, and they did it wonderfully. And then rounding off the main cast, we've got Miss Sylvia Hoeks as Wallace's personal assistant, Love. And let me tell you, I can't ever recall a time when I've seen this woman in a film. Maybe I have before, but she knocked this thing out of the damn park. Holy shit. And honestly, you can say that for just about everybody on the main cast. It absolutely blows my mind that I can sit here and say Harrison Ford might have been the weak link in this film. Yes, his character was absolutely necessary for the plot, but I don't know if his heart just wasn't in it or what, because Ryan Gosling, Ana de Armas, Jared Leto, I felt that they were all their characters. It was done perfectly well. Everybody was totally involved. Honestly, even the side cast, you had big budget actors who have been in main roles recently. We've got David Batista, you know, everybody knows him from Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff, as Sapphire Morton in this film. We've got Robin Wright as Agent K's superior officer on the police force. And everybody did a fantastic job. That's a huge praise I can sing about this film. Next thing I want to talk about is the musical score. Fantastic. Music is a huge part of Blade Runner 2049's identity, but it doesn't just define the movie. It sets the ambience. You feel morphed into that dystopian Shakespearean play that this movie is. You feel the romantic ambience in scenes. You feel the dread, the action, the suspense. It's all there. I don't know exactly who the composer was for this movie, but hats off to them because it was fantastic. And it's only enhanced by the long silent periods that you have in the movie. This movie is very slow paced. I don't know if I've already mentioned that, but there are times where having no music amplifies the experience, and then when the music does kick in, it's 100 times better because of that. The music isn't overpowering. It's not the loudest thing on the screen. You know, there's no build up to jump scares or anything like that. It's there and it does its job without being in your face. And that is something I feel that is very rare these days. Next, let's talk about the cinematography in this film, which was admittedly very well done. Right from the get-go, you know you're not in Kansas anymore. You do not belong, and this is somewhere very far off. The color in this world is gone. save for the bright neon billboards that line the streets everywhere you go. It's the use of those colors and textures, the monochromatic, the contrasting neon, that makes this universe feel gritty and real or fantastical all at the same time. Everybody knows it's that cyberpunk universe. The best way I can describe the way this movie looks is a manic cyberpunk dream filled with just enough conviction and possibility that you believe in the future for just a brief moment. Now, where I can tell this movie is going to lose a lot of its audience is the runtime. Not a lot of people these days are willing to sit through a 3-hour movie. They want their short-term satisfaction. They want to go home. It's not everybody's cup of tea, and I can acknowledge that. However, for me, sitting through this movie did not feel like 3 hours whatsoever. It felt like I was just watching another normal runtime movie, and then I looked at my phone whenever I got out the film, and holy cow, it's 3 hours later. That said, Blade Runner 2049 is a great film that not only adds to what Ridley Scott created 35 years ago, it also stands on its own 2 feet. It's coherent in its own right, but it builds upon a pre-established universe. It does not feel anything like so many reboots and remakes and sequels that we get these days. This movie feels like something that's been decades in the making and wasn't just thought of a few years ago. It feels like this movie was planned from the get-go. We just had to wait for the proper time in the world to make it. I think a lot of the fans of the originals are really going to enjoy this, and I think people who have never seen the original will still be able to go into it, watch it for the first time, and have a good time. And I feel like that's really saying something with such a pre-established universe. This movie more than exceeded my expectations, and I believe is proof of just how good a sequel can be that separates itself from the original movie, even though it was released 35 years apart. I'm going to go ahead and give this movie a 9 out of 10 in my opinion, with the recommendation that you see it in theaters rather than waiting for it to come out on DVD or wait for it to just be free to watch on your television. This is definitely worth the money I spent on my ticket, and I think you'll enjoy it too. Now, to close out, I do just want to acknowledge that this is an experimental thing. Hopefully this gets a little bit of attention, and I'm probably going to continue to do these regardless because it's a great way for me to kind of vent, because my friends aren't really as big a movie buffs as me. But we're going to try and do a movie each week. If you have any suggestions for me, feel free to throw them out and put them in the comments or whatever you feel like doing. Shoot me a personal message, and I'll go ahead and try and get to that as soon as possible. Next week, I believe we're going to do The Foreigner, which is the new Jackie Chan film, so expect a video on that here in the next few weeks.